Welcome to Endwalker. In this guide, we'll go over all of the actions the Thaumaturge and Black Mage learn from level 1 to 50, in order. We'll go over how each action is meant to be used, and when applicable, the recommended way to use it. Blizzard is your starting spell. I will refer to this spell as Blizzard 1 for the sake of clarity. Using Blizzard 1 makes you enter the Umbral Ice state, signified by 1 to 3 blue shards in your elemental gauge. The number of shards corresponds to the level of Umbral Ice you are in. To start, you only have access to the first stage, but later on, casting Blizzard 1 again will increase the level. The Umbral Ice state has these effects as shown. The main use of Umbral Ice is that it recovers an enormous amount of mana every 3 seconds. Keep in mind that mana recovery is directly tied to server ticks, which happen independently from you entering this state. So sometimes the first tick happens half a second after you enter the state, other times it takes the full 3 seconds. When casting spells, you can safely start moving in the last half or so second of the cast. This concept is known as slide casting and is a crucial skill to master as a Black Mage due to their limited mobility in combat. If you want to learn more about slide casting and other useful concepts such as GCDs, OGCDs and weaving, please see the video in the top right corner. At level 2, you learn the spell Fire. I will refer to this spell as Fire 1 for clarity. Using Fire 1 will make you exit the Umbral Ice state if you were in it, otherwise it will instead put you in the Astral Fire state. Opposite to the Umbral Ice state, Astral Fire has these effects as shown. The main takeaway is that you do not recover mana in Astral Fire, but your fire spells hit much harder. Naturally, Blizzard 1 will also cancel Astral Fire instead of entering Umbral Ice if you are in Astral Fire state when you cast Blizzard 1. Since level 1, you also have the trait Aspect Mastery, which makes your fire spells free while affected by Umbral Ice, and your ice spells free while affected by Astral Fire. At this level, this isn't a particularly important effect. Right now, your rotation involves casting Fire 1 repeatedly until you are barely able to cast Blizzard 1 twice, 400 mana, and then you switch to Blizzard 1 until your mana bar is full. Rinse repeat. At level 4, you learn the ability Transpose. If you're in either Umbral Ice or Astral Fire state, using Transpose will swap you to the first level of the opposite state. To change state without Transpose, you would have to cast the same spell twice just to start it, so this ability is very useful for switching states. A tip regarding Transpose is that it also resets the duration of your state, so you can use it repeatedly out of combat to not completely fizzle out. This changes your rotation to instead cast Transpose when you have just enough mana to cast Blizzard once, 300 mana, and Transpose back to Fire when you have full mana. At level 6, you learn the spell Thunder, or Thunder 1 for clarity. This spell applies a damage over time effect, or DOT for short. If an enemy survives the full duration of this spell, it does slightly more damage than Fire 1 boosted by stage 1 of Astral Fire. Blizzard 1 on the other hand does significantly less damage than Thunder 1. For this reason, the primary use of Thunder 1 is to use it while you're waiting for mana to replenish in Umbral Ice state. Whenever you enter Umbral Ice, make sure to apply Thunder 1 to your targets. At level 8, you learn the role action and ability Addle. This ability makes your target do less damage with a focus on magic damage for a bit. This often can reduce the damage of room-wide unavoidable damage since these are typically magical, although using it against any damage is still a benefit. At level 10, you learn the role action and spell Sleep. This spell puts all enemies in an area to sleep for a while or until they take damage. Due to the nature of group content, outside of job-specific quests, it is likely you will never need to use this spell. A fun, yet not that useful, interaction with Thunder is that the dot component of this spell does not actually break sleep. At level 12, you learn the spell Blizzard 2. This spell does area of effect damage, or AoE for short, around your target, and like Blizzard 1, makes you enter Umbral Ice or exit Astral Fire depending on your situation. Blizzard 2 beats both Blizzard 1 and Fire 1 on 3 or more targets. While Blizzard 2 only beats Thunder 1 once there are 4 targets, enemies in such large packs at these levels tend to not survive long enough for Thunder 1 to beat it, so for AoE, I recommend just spamming Blizzard 2. At level 15, you learn the spell Scathe. This spell is unaffected by cost and damage multipliers from both states, and so, even if the double damage effect activates a so-called proc, it will still be much weaker than Fire 1. The advantage to using Scathe is that it is instant, so you can use it while on the move. Since it does not benefit from either state, you will benefit from being in Umbral Ice while using it to recover mana. It should be stated that the ineffectiveness of this spell is to the point that a majority of Black Mages don't use it at all. At level 18, you learn the spell Fire 2. Like Fire 1, it makes you enter Astral Fire or exit Umbral Ice depending on your situation. Fire 2 has a longer cast time and higher mana cost, but it is worth using over Fire 1 with at least 3 targets. As such, for AoE you now, similar to your single target rotation, spam Fire 2 until you have just enough mana for 1 Blizzard 2, 600 mana, and then transpose and spam Blizzard 2 until you are at full mana, transpose, repeat. You also learn the role action and ability Swift Cast. This action makes your next spell with a cast time be instant. This can be useful to cast an extra spell while running, or to keep up the attack while you reposition. At level 20, you learn the trait Aspect Mastery 2, which unlocks access to Umbral Ice 2 and Astral Fire 2, which have the following effects compared to their stage 1 equivalents as shown. For Fire, the primary difference is that it just does even more damage. For Ice, you may be able to max out your mana significantly faster. Using an Ice spell while already in Umbral Ice 1 will advance you to Umbral Ice 2, and using a Fire spell while already in Astral Fire 1 will advance you to Astral Fire 2. Using the opposite element will still clear your state entirely, and Transpose always starts you at stage 1 when it swaps your state. At level 24, you learn the role action and ability Lucid Dreaming. If you end up in a situation where you're not in either state and also are completely out of mana, you can use Lucid Dreaming to recover. In any normal situation, this ability is completely useless to Black Mages. At level 26, you learn the spell Thunder 2. If an enemy survives the full duration of Thunder 2, it does more damage than Blizzard 2, but less than Fire 2. Even though it beats Thunder 1 on 2 targets, it is recommended to use Thunder 2 when there are at least 3 or more targets due to the trait that is unlocked at level 28. Keep in mind that an enemy cannot be affected by both Thunder 1 and Thunder 2 at the same time, so on 2 targets you just apply Thunder 1 to both. For your AoE rotation, you want to keep Thunder 2 up on all the enemies, primarily by using it while in the Umbral Ice state. However, you should always have enough excess mana in any Astral Fire state to apply Thunder 2 once without losing out on any Fire 2 casts, should it happen to run out at that time. At level 28, you learn the passive trait Thundercloud. This causes your single target Thunder spells to have a 10% chance and your AoE Thunder spells to have a 3% chance every tick of damage to cause the Thundercloud effect. The Thundercloud effect makes your next Thunder spell be instant, free, and in addition to applying its normal damage and damage over time effect, also do its full damage over time effect up front as a bonus. Damage over time effects all do damage together every 3 seconds on a server tick. As such, you can expect a damage over time effect with a duration of 18 seconds to hit a total of 6 times. This passive trait makes it even more important to make sure you try to keep your Thunder dots up on your targets. A Thundercloud procced Thundercast is always stronger than your Fire spells, so you always want to make sure to use these procs when you get them. If you know you will need to move in just a moment, it may be beneficial to delay the use of the Thundercloud proc until you need to start running since it is instant. At level 30, you learn the ability Mana Ward. This ability puts a big shield on you and confusingly does not cost any mana. When you expect big damage to come your way, use this. I would not recommend that you use it to eat avoidable damage, but I guess I cannot stop you from doing so just make sure to use it early if you do that. Also at level 30, doing your class quest line will eventually lead you to the Black Mage quest, which is available once you complete the main scenario quest, Self-Management. Once you unlock the Black Mage, remember to equip your Soul Crystal to change into the Black Mage Job. The starting action of the Black Mage is Mana Font. This ability immediately recovers 30% of your mana, even in Astral Fire state. While the cooldown is really long, the payoff is relatively small, so you should simply use it as often as you can in Astral Fire state while you have less than 7000 mana. Optimally, you want to weave it right after an instant spell like a Thundercloud procced Thundercast. This is because using it after a casted spell will delay your next spell cast due to animation locking. At level 35, you learn the trait Aspect Mastery 3, which unlocks access to Umbral Ice 3 and Astral Fire 3, which have the following effects compared to their stage 1 and 2 equivalents. The big takeaway is that Umbral Ice 3 can max out your mana in 2 ticks instead of 3, and makes ice spells free. Both Umbral Ice 3 and Astral Fire 3 also cut the cast times of the opposite element spells in half. Aspect Mastery 3 also upgrades Blizzard 2 and Fire 2 to instantly both remove the opposite element buff and max out their respective element buff in a single cast, enabling you to swap elements freely on AoE and to also make use of the fact that the opposite element spells are free. You also learn the spells Blizzard 3 and Fire 3, which both have significantly higher cast times and mana costs than Blizzard 1 and Fire 1, yet not the damage to compensate for it. Their main benefit is that they both, similar to Blizzard 2 and Fire 2, clear the opposite element and max out their own element buff immediately, and due to the cast time having effect of the stage 3 buffs, their cast times are no issue when used specifically for swapping state. The way this changes your rotation is that you always switch state with Blizzard 3 and Fire 3 instead of Transpose. And you can cast Fire 1 all the way down to 0 mana should that be possible. On AoE, Transpose is similarly made redundant, as you can switch state with Blizzard 2 and Fire 2, and similarly you can safely spam Fire 2 all the way down to 0 mana should that be possible. You can still use Transpose while running or not in combat to not let the timer on your states run out, so you don't have to start from 0, although at these levels this changes very little as long as you enter combat with full mana. To be precise, this presents a new rotation for you, including this opener. Start a fight with Thunder 1 or 3 when you later get this. Then cast Fire 3 followed by 4 Fire 1s. Then lead into the general rotation, which starts by using Blizzard 3 followed by Thunder 1 or 3. Then cast Blizzard 1 until your mana bar is full. After that, cast Fire 3 followed by 6 Fire 1s. Then you cast Blizzard 3 and the cycle begins anew. Remember to spend Thundercloud procs when you get them. At level 40, you learn the spell Freeze, which does more damage than Blizzard 2, but can only be used if you already are in Umbral Ice. Additionally, Freeze does not refresh the Umbral Ice timer and does not increase the stack either. At this level, your Umbral Ice state on AoE starts with Blizzard 2, followed by Freeze once, and then Thunder 2, meaning that Freeze effectively replaces the second Blizzard 2 cast. Entering Astral Fire state with at least 9000 mana is fine. It is important to not forget the Umbral Ice buff timer when using Freeze. At level 42, you get the passive trait Firestarter, which gives your Fire 1 a high chance of making your next Fire 3 cast free and instant. If you pay attention to your action bars, you can see the dashed lines around Fire 3 indicating this proc about half a second before your cast finishes. And you can, and should, immediately use this proc at no loss. If you don't see the proc and are already busy casting another spell, don't cancel and simply use Fire 3 after that spell instead. At level 44, you learn the role action and ability Surecast. This ability makes you immune to most knockbacks, but also makes you immune to interruption as a result of damage. What this means is that sometimes when you're hit with a particularly powerful attack, your casting is stopped. This cannot happen when Surecast is active. At level 45, Thunder 1 is permanently promoted to Thunder 3, which significantly increases its duration and damage. At this point, you absolutely want to use your Thundercloud procs as soon as you get them, as the damage of Thunder 3 in such a proc is massive, only beaten by Thunder 2 on 3 or more targets. At level 50, you learn the ability Ethereal Manipulation. This regularly lets you teleport to the exact position of any other player in your party. You should practice the use of this ability a lot, as it is crucial to optimizing your play as a Black Mage. You also learn the spell Flare, which can only be used in Astral Fire and is affected by it, and when cast, immediately spends all the mana you have. An interesting fact about Flare is that as long as you have at least 800 mana, it will let you use it. You should always make sure to finish every AoE Astral Fire state with Flare. For single target, Flare is not worth using to cap off Astral Fire unless you can pair it with Swift Cast to skip the enormous cast time, which additionally preferably should be weaved on an instant cast proc. To round off, let's cover your level 50 attack rotations. For single target, you can open with Thunder 3, Fire 3 and then 4 Fire 1s. Then it leads into the general rotation. Use Blizzard 3, then Thunder 3 and then Blizzard 1 while waiting for mana. By now, you should have gotten 2 ticks of mana and be at max. If not, cast Blizzard 1 again. Then cast Fire 3 followed by 6 Fire 1s. Then return to Blizzard 3. If at any point you get a Thundercloud or Firestarter proc, use them immediately unless you know having them within the next few seconds for movement reasons is valuable. Remember that you can see the Firestarter proc just before the cast that activated it finishes, letting you spend it immediately. Should you end an Astral Fire state with more than 800 mana but not enough to cast Fire 1, then Flare is worth using only if you can weave Swift Cast and then use it, and you should not waste Swift Cast on this trick if you will need it for movement. For 3 or more targets, open with Thunder 2 and then 3 Fire 2s into Flare. Optionally, you can use Mana Font, Swift Cast and then another Flare. If a Thundercloud proc happens between the Fire 2s, save it for weaving Mana Font and Swift Cast. This then leads to the general rotation. Start with Blizzard 2, then freeze while waiting for mana, then apply Thunder 2. Then cast 3 Fire 2s into Flare and return to Blizzard 2. If after the 3rd Fire 2 you still have at least 3800 mana, then you can cast a 4th Fire 2 before Flare. If you get a Thundercloud proc, use it immediately and then continue the sequence from wherever point you were at. If you have an Ether that grants at least 800 mana, this means any high quality Ether or anything above Mega Ether for normal quality, then you can use this to chain an additional Flare cast. It is also always worthwhile to consider Swift casting Flare on AoE. That is all for this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or anything to add, please leave a comment down below. Fun fact, normally in the Final Fantasy franchise, the higher stages of Fire and Blizzard tend to be more destructive and cover bigger areas as the number increases. Instead, each of the 4 variants of each spell has its own niche, where 1 and 3 work their way into utility positions as you reach higher levels.